Ladies and gentlemen, forget all the other stuff. It's an absolute honor today to sit down with my man and the legend, Mike Matt. But before we get into this podcast, man, I just fucked that up, right? But before we get into this podcast, this episode is sponsored by Next Level Financial. Take control of your financial future. Get your complimentary financial analysis today by Seth Starnes. Listen, everybody, Seth Starnes, he has next level suspension too. He knows what it takes to stay in the game, to save money, to continue to pay for the tires and the gas and all that good stuff behind it. So listen, give him a call. It's absolutely amazing what he does. So let's fucking go, as I always say, right? We're not here to be politically correct today, but anyway, people. And Mike, I tell all this. I know you're with Hyper Naked, which is an absolute amazing brand. I actually had the honor to sit down with him and Jeff Servin not too long ago. So if you guys missed that, go back and rewatch it. And this day and age, why would you spend your hard-earned money on an off-the-rack suit when it's not going to fit Mike correctly? It's not going to fit me correctly, right? And it causes all kinds of issues. It's 2025, people. Wake up. Get out the matrix, right? It's treat yourself. You need that full custom suit, tailored, measured specifically for you, whether you got a dad bod like me, right? Or maybe you got a big gut. It don't matter what it is. It's made
easy
for you.
easy
I
on
know,
the gut
dude,
thing.
I know.
The off season. We call it bulking.
It's man, I work hard for this. I work hard. Like my buddy said, his wife gives him a hard time about, being out of shape and round. He's like, girl, round is a shape you use in school, right? It's an absolute shape. So people, bisontrack.com. Listen, I'm friends with Hyper Naked. You're not going to go wrong with any custom suit, right? But I'm an ambassador for Bison. They're the most amazing people you're ever going to meet in your whole entire life. So go to bisontrack.com, get that full custom suit started. But Mike, listen, man, me and you got a lot to talk about. Me and you was on the phone, video chat for an hour. We was just talking about how we should have recorded that, but next time we will. And you had a good idea for that too. So I won't surprise. I won't ruin the surprises. So Mike, man, welcome to the podcast.
Glad to be here, man.
Bro, you don't even know, the honor is all mine. So people, when I reached out to Mike to invite him on the podcast, he's like, are you sure you want to do this? Absolutely, I want to do it. And here we are. So
I was thinking about it today too, and I'm like, I'm not really sure why Chris wants to talk to me. I don't know that I have as much to offer as a lot of other people. And then I was like, oh, yeah, but everybody worth talking to is probably really busy getting ready for Daytona. I get it now. Trying to fill a slot.
You done figured it out, Mike. Damn it, dude. No.
I'm on to you, man.
From the get-go, you were. Absolutely. I love it, man. So listen, Mike, dude, we got a lot to talk about, man. Again, dude, I mean, listen, everybody's journey in the motorcycle and the way it changes us and touches us is different for everybody, and the way everybody gives back to the sport to help it grow is absolutely amazing. So let's start off with your wonderful journey, man. Where did it start for you?
Yeah, so I'm probably a little bit of a one-off compared to a lot of people you talk to. I'm actually one of those people that really I didn't even really throw a leg over a bike until I was in my early 30s. A lot of people, especially around the racetrack, stuff like that, it's like, you talk to all these people that basically came out of the womb onto a 50cc or something like that, right? They've been just riding all their lives. A little different for me. In fact, not only that, I actually flat out didn't like motorcycles. Or I should say, more accurately, I didn't think I liked motorcycles. I thought I hated motorcycles. In my early 20s, my older brother had an older Yamaha Roadstar, and he was, a dude, and he constantly tried to get me to buy a bike or at least ride his, and I was just like, nah, man, not my thing. And even more so the sport bikes, the crotch rockets, right? I hated them. Because there's a whole persona as well. We all know, there's a whole persona that goes on along with that. But yeah, I just had no time for motorcycles. And then I'm going to say when I was 34, maybe I'd have to do the math on that. But in my early to mid 30s, I literally woke up one Saturday morning and I just rolled over and looked at Trish, my wife, and I was just like, I'm going to buy a motorcycle. She was just like, what? Like, who are you? What have you done with my husband? Like, you hate motorcycles, And I literally just woke up with a wild hair on my ass one day about it. And I was just like, you know what? I'm going to do this. And, so I ran up to Clarksville, Tennessee, and I did like the 2-day train to get your endorsement. And then I started shopping on Craigslist because Facebook Marketplace wasn't quite as popular yet back then. And then I coincidentally also ended up on a Yamaha. It was a V-Star 1300. So, cruiser, bone stock cruiser bike. And that was how I started, essentially how I started motorcycles. And I rode that thing around for a little bit. And I was super squid. I had no idea what I was doing. And I wasn't particularly good at anything motorcycle related. I don't have some magic bone in my body that made me magically good at riding a motorcycle, right? But the one thing I will say is I did have, kind of a predefined conception, that basically anytime I got on that bike, I wanted to be a better rider, not just go out there hooning. And so I rode that bike for, I don't know, a year and a half, maybe 2 years, somewhere along those lines, probably 2 years. And then we took a trip out to East Tennessee, and we were right in that neck of the woods of the Tail of the Dragon. And I hemmed and hawed, and I was like, well, maybe I bring the bike with me and hit the Tail of the Dragon. And went back and forth, and that ultimately did do that. And I rode the Tail of the Dragon a few times, threw the wife on the back, hit the Tail of the Dragon. And again, super squid, jeans, t-shirt, pair of work boots, half bucket helmet, scraping floor pegs, floorboards going around those corners. I got some super squidly pictures from 129 photo,
Kill boy.
Yeah. Well, I thought I was all that, man. I'm like, look at that. In those pictures, you can see spark coming off my floorboards. I'm killing it. Doing all of like 12 miles an hour in my 9 degrees lean angle on the stupid big bike, right? But what I determined at that point was that this whole cornering thing is a lot of fun, and bike just is not made to do it. So I came home from that trip. That was in May. I came home from that trip and decided that it was time to buy a sport bike. And again, this was a huge revelation for my wife because she hated the sport bike. She liked the road bike, but she hated the sport bikes. She thought they were dangerous. All these other things. And not only that, but as naive as I still was, I went out and bought my first sport bike. It was a 2006 ZX10R. So right into the deep end, right?
Yeah.
And I didn't buy it because I wanted a big, powerful, fast bike. I bought it because I knew that I was friends of the guy selling it. And I was like, all right, well, by proxy, I know the guy selling the bike. I'm in the right place at the right time. The price is right, so I bought it. Right? I didn't buy it because it was a leader bike. Just a happy coincidence, right? And so then I started tearing around on that thing a little bit, and started catching up with some people in the Nashville motorcycle scene. And I met some pretty good people in there, met some screwballs, whatever. It's a good time. And ended up with some pretty bad electrical issues on that bike after I owned it for a year or so. And in a semi midlife crisis, semi just being afraid of the stupid electrical issues, I went to the dealership in Nashville and bought a brand new 2017 ZX10RR Winter Test Edition, right? And it was funny because that was a hard sell on the wife. We kind of have this thing. It's like we'll never tell the other one no on anything, but we'll definitely discuss things, especially bigger purchases like that. And the funniest thing about that bike was I told her, I'm like, look, this is they only made 500 of them. It's limited edition, blah blah blah, which is in hindsight is kind of silly. But I was like, look, this will be the bike that I hang on to forever. In 80 years, when I'm dead and gone, they'll dig this out of the back of my garage and go, oh my gosh.
Kind of like you, babe.
So that was, and the funniest thing about that was that's the first time I've ever bought a brand new vehicle of any sort ever in my life. It happened to be a motorcycle. Again, big, huge, leader bike, blah, blah, blah. And I rode that thing around. I bought that it was a 2017. So I bought it in November of 2017. And I've got a couple of friends who were doing track at the time or had some history in track. My good friend Andrew Pinozzo, good friend John Kirby, and they're like, "Look, man, you need to bring that thing to a racetrack. It's really meant to be there, and you're hooning around on the streets on this big ass bike. Like, you should go to a racetrack." Well, I knew nothing about racetracks, track days, American road racing, anything like that, right? totally new concept to me. And when they said that, I'm picturing an oval, right? I'm picturing like a NASCAR oval, and I'm like, that's dumb, man. Like, who would do that? You know, I run in the streets like a real man. You know, that's all, that nonsense. Well, I ended up going up to NCM in Bowling Green, Kentucky for a track day just to observe. And when I saw what the track actually looked like, I was like, all right, well, I could be convinced to give this a shot. So by May of 2018, I did my first track day at NCM with Midwest Track Day. For those that know, the almighty Jeffrey Wheat, great dude. He ran that organization until just recently. But yeah, so I did my first track day. I was that guy, you know, novice group, never been on a track, not particularly good at motorcycling anyway, on a brand new bone stock ZX10RR.
Leather's too big.
Oh yeah, almost everything I had was borrowed. Yep, leathers were too big. I was wearing
too
the boots.
big. Boots,
yeah. The boots fit. The leathers are way too big. The gloves were the gloves was really the only thing I couldn't borrow. I went and bought a new set of gloves, but they were just the $99 Sedici spec from Cycle Gear. You know, I mean, I didn't have a clue what I was doing. And what's worse is I don't care what anybody says. Your first track day as a newbie, you know, when you just don't really know what you're doing and you don't have any background or exposure to racetracks, it's intimidating. You know, like I walked in there and I had no idea what I was doing. And but yeah, so I just did a Saturday in Road Novice Group Saturday at NCM, and it was funny because when I talked to my wife and I was like, look, you know, the guys should do a track day, right? And she's like a racetrack, you know, she's just terrified. And the funniest thing looking back was I told her, I'm like, look, this would be like a one-time thing. I'll probably hate it. You know, like it's just kind of a bucket list thing to say I had my motorcycle on a racetrack. Like that sounds cool, right? And so I'll just do it once. It's just one day, and I'll probably hate it, never do it again, whatever, right? Well, in hindsight, that's hysterical, right? So that was one day in May of 2018, and I did enjoy it, obviously. And so in October of that year, I borrowed all the gear a second time. And sorry, my earbud is keeps falling out of my ear. Try the other one. But so in October of 2018, then I borrowed all the gear again and did one day. And after that, you know, so I did 2 individual days, 2018, and then 2019. I think I upped that to like 30 some days, like 32 total days or whatever. I mean, it was just insane. I hit every event that Midwest Track Day had. I did several events with STT. I did a few events with Track Day Winter back when they were still around. I mean, I basically did every event that was at NCM plus Barber, Little Tally. You know, I just crammed it full that year, and then you know, it's basically been like that ever since.
I love it, man. Everybody's, you know, people's got their own different path into it, but once it gets a hold of you, it changes your life, right? It's I always say this, Mike, motorcycles pick you. You don't pick bikes. You know what I'm saying? It's you know, I grew up as obviously a fan of it. That's how I got into it. You know, I found my passion at a young age, but I was just like you. First track day, didn't know shit. Everybody's got an opinion about it, but they've never been, right? So my anxiety and anticipation, leather's too big, boots, you know, the whole nine. And everybody knows you're at that guy right there. Yeah, he's a squid. You could totally tell this guy right here. He's a version to the total squid, right? But then you meet the most amazing people in the world. You know, they come up to you, help you. Hey, my name's, you know, Mike Matt. What's your name? Oh, I'm Simcoe. It's my first time here. Oh, yeah, blah, 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 blah. You know, and you give helpful advice, and then we become, you know, family, and years go by and nothing but smiles for miles, you know? Yeah. So, yeah, man. And there's a big stigma around the whole, man, there's so much bad misinformation going around and wrong information versus, you know, good information. So in your personal opinion, since you're a coach, which we'll get into that, how do you approach somebody or try to tell somebody that you speak with at a coaching level, like, look, There's always bad misinformation out there, but how do you teach them or get them to understand what's real information and what's not so good information?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's an important point because for the new person or the newer people, that don't have a ton of experience, or maybe it is their first track day. The first thing I always tell people, and everybody will kind of echo this, and I say it because somebody told it to me once, right? But that is like when you're doing your first track day or your first track days, you got to walk in that paddock with your mouth shut and your ears open, right? Anything you think like check it at the gate as you come in, because there's a whole lot of stuff, especially if you've got a lot of street riding under your belt. There's probably a lot of stuff that you've got to kind of unlearn and relearn, potentially. Not everybody, but a lot of street riders got to, we all had to unlearn some bad habits and relearn newer, better habits, and understand why we're doing what we're doing. But as far as like the information, there's so much information in any paddock you go to, and most of it's good. And it is hard, especially as the newer riders. It's hard to differentiate, when you're talking to people, because there's a lot of Terminal I Group riders who really think they know exactly what they've, they think they got it all figured out, and they're really really anxious to dispense their version of their knowledge, right? The Dunning-Kruger effect is wildly enforced with some of these Terminal I Group riders, right? Great people, no offense, but no, it's like you got to basically, you got to start by taking everything with a bit of a grain of salt. And what you'll learn is that you can kind of start to hone in on the people who actually know what they're talking about, especially if the hair color maybe isn't, some shade of gray or white or whatever it is under this hat. People have been around a little bit. Obviously, the longer you've been around, there's better chances you know what you're talking about. You also kind of pick up on dudes. Again, the Dunning-Kruger effect, huge, right? Like it is very, very true on a racetrack. The faster you are, the slower you are, right? So it's like the fastest guys are the ones who aren't going to tell you how fast they are, right? If somebody's talking to you about how fast they are, there's a pretty good chance that they're not, right? And maybe their advice isn't top tier, right? But then, obviously the coaches, right? Like, especially depending on the organizations, most of the organizations that I've ever ridden with are great organizations. You got a lot of good coaches. The coaches are a great resource, generally speaking, especially because, that's why they're there. Like you said, I coach for Fastline Track Days. We have a top tier group of coaches, not control riders, coaches, right? And that's why we're all there, right? Like we're eager to answer these questions. There are days where I'm at the racetrack coaching and honestly wishing more people would come up to ask questions, right? Like, sometimes what I get in that situation is people who maybe get a little annoyed because I'm seeking them out. Like, hey, let's talk. Let's talk about that session or whatever. And they're like, man, I'm just trying to do my thing. All right, cool, whatever. But no, definitely talk to the coaches, and then what happens is very quickly you start to understand how to grab the good information and kind of skim over the bad information. But most, to kind of encapsulate all of that, most of the information is going to be good. Even some of the information that may be a little hit and miss still probably has got some grain of truth to it, right? But it all boils down to just how much time you're putting on that seat and how much time you're spending around those paddocks and the relationships that you're forming. You're going to meet good people, and the good people that you meet have got good information almost always.
Oh, 100%. It's first starting out, it's so much to take in. Everybody's, doing this all the time. Then you get with your friends that, don't do track days like you do, or just now getting into it, and they're giving you all this, information. Oh, like I had a guy I was listening to not too long ago. He's like, yeah, man, I made my suspension stiffer by setting my spring preload. And I was like, oh, okay. How'd that work out for you, buddy? Like, myth, people, it don't stiffen your. But anyway, this is a whole nother talk. But just simple stuff like that, because people always have their own ideas of why they're so fast and all that. And the big thing for me too is even my wife's best friend, her son got into motorcycles. I want to say this is his third or fourth year. And of course, he comes up to me because he knows I've been into it my whole life. He's like, "What should I get?" I'm looking at a 750 and a 600. I was like, "Now you need 250 or 300." And he's like, "Oh, I'll outgrow that in 3 months." I was like, "Absolutely not, you won't." Right. So he took my advice. He bought it, and about 2 months later, he went up to a 600 and then bought another 600. Right. But his buddy come up to me and was like, "Hey, I want to buy a first bike." And I was like, "Same thing, dude. Get a 250, get a 300. You really want to know how to ride. Forget what all your knucklehead friends tell you out here on the street. Sign up, go to VIR, do quarter speed. I got a lot of people into track days. I mean, I know a lot of people. They'll coach you. You get proper training, then you can move up, right?" Well, he goes out and buys a CBR 1000, and yeah, he wasn't on this earth too much longer after that. So, it's
no, and it's
and
it's
the
funny
ego,
too, because
Mike, too. The ego, right?
yeah,
That's one
oh
thing.
yeah, huge.
That's what I kept telling him, dude. Leave your ego at the door, bro. You're not a Spartan getting ready to go fight the Persians, bro. You're a little tadpole swimming in the pool, right?
Right.
Chasing your tail like a wet dog.
Yeah, no, and I mean I'm one of those people that should have listened to that advice. That big ZX10 double R, high end fancy super bike, blah blah blah, right? I rode that thing all the way up. I was mid pack A group. So by the time I was running advanced, I had never even ridden a 600. I had only known leader bikes. And in the process of getting from my very first track day as a novice to mid pack A group back then, I wadded that bike up several times. So my pride and joy, right? The bike that was going to be around until I was dead and gone, and they were going to find it as a barn find that in meticulous condition. I've got gravel from 4 different states in the belly pan of that bike, which is fine. I wouldn't trade it for the world. It was all a great experience. But I finally bought a couple of 600s in, it's like, it was one of those things where when I bought a ZX6, an older ZX6, when I started riding that thing on the track, I was just like, I had all these people telling me over the couple of years that I started doing track days. They're like, "Dude, stop riding that big old bike, the big expensive bike. Get you a throwaway 600 and go out there and hoon on it." And I never did until I didn't. Hell, I don't think I started actually riding 600 until like 2 years ago, maybe 3. But yeah, and it's like the funniest thing is I've owned and sold and crashed like 5 or 6. I've had a couple R6s, a couple of ZX6s. But man, they're in my opinion, they're way more fun to ride. I still have that ZX10, and it's a great bike, and I still I still love to hoon on that thing. You'll never beat a leader bike for just joy, but if you want to go out there and learn how to ride fast and ride well, take your pick of any 600 and go out there and just hoon on it. I've kind of become that guy. Like when I go out and play as opposed to coaching, you get in between sessions where you're not coaching a session, you go out and just play. I've become that guy where it's like my favorite thing to do is find the big sweepers, especially at NCM, and collect a couple of 3-4 riders, passing them on the outside, past the those big leader bikes, S1000s, R1s, you pass them on the outside of the corner, just looking over at them from your bone stock ZX6, It's like there's something really satisfying about that. We all know that saying, but it's incredibly true. And it just took me way too long to figure it out. But it's way more fun to ride a slow bike fast than to ride a fast bike slow, right? 100%. There's almost nobody in these paddocks at track days that can even come close to ringing out a leader bike, except for on the straightaway. Anybody can do that. But none of us are superhuman enough to ride these leader bikes beyond their capabilities, except for obviously some of these track days we get some of the Moto America racers and stuff like that. Obviously they're a bit of a different caliber, but your average person that's running, top I group or mid pack A group on a big old built, leader bike. I mean, it's fun. Like I said, everybody do your own thing, but if you want to learn and truly become a better rider and your goal is to become better and faster, get you a 600, man.
Yeah, I try to tell people that, and again, the biggest thing, that I find being in this sport such a long time is the ego. It's so hard for us because we got to be
Oh yeah.
Spartans and grab the bull by the horn and blah, 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 blah. And really, you show up and you think you're big and bad, been talking shit to everybody. Here comes this 12-year-old, just fucking leaves you in the dust. And I was like, what happened?
Yeah.
Like, I thought you was this big bad Valentino Rossi.
Yep.
What happened, Rossi? He's like, fuck you, Simcoe. I'm like, okay, yeah. So it's freaking awesome.
Yeah.
I want to get to a couple of these comments real quick. Tim Price says, hi, gentlemen. What is up, Tim?
Tim's one of my best friends. He's a good dude. I've got, so like Tim's a good example of knowledge around the racetrack, right? Like I had when I was intermediate, I was thinking of all the things that I needed to get faster, right? Suspension was one of them. So I talked to some great minds in suspension, Thermos Man. He helped me at Barber one day, helped me cut some time off, and Eric Vallarta over at Velocity Calibrations, the guys at Turn One Racing, a bunch of great people, good suspension people, but I didn't get it, right? Like suspension is kind of a dark art to me. But Tim's helped me a ton with suspension, and he's helped me understand it a lot better too. So Tim's top tier people for sure. He's the guy that I can just call from the racetrack and be like, look, I'm here. Here's the bike I'm on. Here's what's going on. Here's what I'm struggling with. And he's like, all right, go to your suspension, adjust your preload 3 clicks or, whatever it is. And I'll go out there and, drop 2 seconds and things feel better, So yeah, Tim's top tier gentleman for sure.
I love it. Thank you, Tim, for your service, right? Yeah, absolutely. And then we got Trina. What is up, Trina? She said, dad bod, LOL. Come on, girls. You know you love the dad bod.
Trina, it's hysterical. So I'm kind of surprised to see her on here. I used to play online poker a lot. I'm talking decades ago. Trina lives out in California. We became friends just because we played online back in the Full Tilt. I don't know if you remember fulltilt.net.
Yep.
Yeah, we used to play poker all the time out there or on Full Tilt, and we became friends over the years. Just we've never met. We've stayed in touch for literally, I'm gonna say 2 decades at this point. So hey, Trina, good to see you.
I love it. Yeah, Trina, thank you. Welcome to the podcast. That's awesome. And then, of course, we got, everybody in loves, Daniel Shoemake. What is up, my man? He said, Mike, you've been bulking for the last couple of years.
Yeah.
That's hilarious. Eating good, baby.
Daniel's one of the first people that I really met at the racetrack. And by met, I mean started to recognize. As I started hanging out at the racetrack more and more, he's, Daniel's a recognizable person. He's a good dude. But he does a lot of pit in, pit out, safety control, stuff like that. And shout out to him and a lot of all those guys who are running safety, corner worker, all that. Daniel, his parents, Matt and Dawn Shoemake, Scotty Elkins, some really, really great people that help keep us safe out there. But yeah, so Daniel's one of the first people that I started to really recognize as I started going to that racetrack more and more, for sure.
I love it. Yeah, Daniel's awesome. I had the honor to hang out with him a couple times. Can't wait to see you again, Daniel. He's actually been on the podcast several times as a co-host. He ain't been on here in a while, Daniel. Been missing you in action, but yeah, he's and I actually had the honor to meet his parents too.
Good people.
Yes, they are.
Yep.
Absolutely. Trina says, I was like, Mike who? LOL. And then Daniel says, wait, I thought the beard was leaving after the mountaineering trip.
Yeah, so I'm not a beard guy. I've never grown a beard, but I grew one last year because I was going out to climb Mount Rainier. And when I came back, I actually did shave it off. And then I went, what have I done? And so now it's back.
I love it. Jessica Heron, what is up, Jessica? She says, super squid. Yeah. And look at you now. Yeah, Jessica's awesome. So Jessica's actually an ambassador for Pendergast podcast. And Jessica, have you received your shirt yet? Just want to know. Tim Price says, Mike, Matthew, Matt, the guy with 3 first names.
Yeah. Source of endless confusion.
I love it, dude. I love it. Tina again says, even back then, I was like, who is this guy? I'm Mike Jones. Y'all remember that? I'm Mike Jones. Yeah, Tim says, was the 06 a ZX10 a powerful bike?
Yeah, the Widowmaker. Yeah. The Widowmaker. All of like 142 horsepower to the back wheel of that bike. The 06 was like the worst gen of ZX10.
It was. Man, it had a shit ton of mid-range though.
Yeah.
That was one thing.
Well, it's just it didn't have any suspension. It cornered like a turd. Bro. In yeah. It's just not a good bike. Electronics were shit on it. I was never more happy to sell a bike than that one, probably.
That's right. We've all had those ladies we've let go of, right? We just
Yeah.
it's not you, babe. It's me. I promise.
Yeah. Yep.
Enjoy your new home. Deuces.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was a couple of the I've owned 2 R6s and I hated them both. No, just because I just don't jive with the R6. So both of those, I tried. I wanted to like the R6. Just for me, doesn't work.
Well, it's like my best way I explain it to people, dude, motorcycles are just like women, right? If you sit on one, you're like, oh yeah, this is me right here, 110%. And you'll take her out and ride her, and no matter how much money you throw at her, whatever, you're just not gelling, right? And then there's one out there, you're like, oh, she's kind of cute. And you go up to her, you talk to her, and next thing you know, she's like, she's the best thing I ever had ridden on in my whole entire life. So you laugh because right? That's yeah.
I've also got some concerns about your objectification of motorcycles. Maybe that's something we take off air. I don't know, Chris.
Never.
On second thought, you're not allowed in my shop or on my motorcycles. I don't want to come to you.
He's like, yeah. You're not welcome anymore, by the way. Yeah. I love it, dude. I love it. Oh my God. Daniel said he was actually running grid that day. I had to tell him how to do turn 1.
Well, turn 1 is complicated when you've never been to a racetrack.
Dude, it is, and again, all the anxiety that just goes into it. And yeah, man, it is, man. Stephanie Servin, what is up, Steph? She says Fastline Track Days is the best. The coaches all go above and beyond, right? Dude, Michael Kellum, dude, you're awesome. He says you're gonna make me come. I love it, dude.
I was wondering if Kellum would tune in. Yes, Stephanie is obviously a little biased, as am I. Since we're heavily involved with Fastline Track Days, but Stephanie, I tend to agree.
Yeah, dude, 110%. Me, Scotty Elkin said I had sex with Mike Matt.
Hey, we said what happened at Barber stays at Barber. Damn it,
right?
Scotty.
Come on, man. You done broke all the rules, dude. This is awesome. So, listen, I'll get on to the rest of the questions here in a little bit. But, Mike, so how did it go from, falling in love with the bikes, track day junkie to, you know what? I want to give this coaching thing a try. How did all that come together for you?
So, like I said, I haven't been doing this all that long, especially by comparison to many other people. And I started coaching trying to think. I think it was the last year that Midwest Track Day was in business. I coached with Jeff Wheat for a year. And Chris Meyer was kind of head of coaching for Jeff, and I forget, honestly, I kind of forget who tapped me. Someone tapped me and said you should come coach, and Chris kind of gave the green light. Jeff gave the green light. But my biggest thing was just not being that far removed from my first track day, and kind of remembering how intimidating it was, and then how it took me a really long time to really settle into track. As much as I liked it right away, it took me a while to settle into it, because believe it or not, I'm really, really introverted. And so I would not seek out help. I didn't seek out people to answer questions. I was just kind of like, well, I'll figure it out and I'll go out there and do my thing. And Midwest Track Day had a couple of great coaches. And a few people will probably recognize a few of the names, but like Andrew Forrest, and obviously Chris Meyer, like I just mentioned, Rusty Zavodny. He was a bit of an acquired taste. Everybody called him the Russian, even though he wasn't actually Russian. I think he was from the Czech Republic. But yeah, Midwest Track Day had some great coaches, and it was actually Andrew Forrest who worked with me that made a really, really big impression. I was in intermediate group. I was riding at NCM one weekend, and I was stuck. I was just at a wall. I think I was running like 217s, 216, something like that. Just a bottom to mid pack I group, and I was at a wall. Couldn't get any faster. And he overheard Andrew Forrest, one of the coaches. So he overheard me, kind of bitching about in the paddock. And he's like, hey, it was at lunchtime. And he's like, hey, for a session after lunch. Let's go out. I'll give you a tow. I'm like, I don't know what that means. You know,
Be like,
he's like,
I usually don't do that on the first date.
right, yeah. But he's like, yeah, no, you can follow me around and I'll show you some lines and I'll help you get better. I'm like, oh, okay, well, yeah, sure. And man, that was one of the funnest sessions that I had to that point, and it was also one of the most humbling sessions because, you know, so we get out there and he tows me around for like the first lap, and you know, we're warming up the tires and just kind of, you know, scooting around, whatever, no big deal. And then he starts picking up the pace, you know, and so I'm following him, trying my best to, you know, kind of stay on his tail and watch and learn. And but I felt the pace. He did a great job, you know. I felt the pace increasing over the first couple, 2-3 laps, whatever. And by, you know, probably the middle of third lap, fourth lap, whatever, I'm like, man, we are hauling. I've never ridden this fast in my life, you know. And I didn't have a lap timer. That was way before I ever even thought about lap timers or anything like that. But yeah, I just had friends, you know, doing the cell phone stopwatch at the start finish line or whatever. But you know, so we're flying around the track, and I was just like, man, we're hauling. This is probably all he's got, and I'm right behind him, like I'm keeping up with this coach, and he's giving it all he's got, you know, and I'm starting to feel real good about myself. And about that time, we came through the bus stop at NCM and onto that middle straight section, and as he comes up over Wheelie Hill, he threw that thing up into a nooner, and this is triple digits going over Wheelie Hill. He threw that thing up in a nooner, and then looks back at me like, "Hey, you still there?" And I was like, I've never been more crushed in my life, because I went from thinking that this is all he's got, and I'm on his tail, so I'm doing awesome, to I am going as fast as I absolutely can, and he's throwing a nooner and looking back at. He rode that thing that whole middle straight at NCM, and I was just like, oh, okay. So you talk about egos at the racetrack and ways to have them crushed.
It's yeah, man, it is, but it's a humbling experience too as well, and you
Oh
learn
yeah.
so much, you know, and that's what's so beautiful about our sport. Everybody wants to see everybody succeed and get faster, right? Even if you get faster than me, you know, it's a beautiful progression, man. So yeah, dude, so that's awesome, dude. What a journey.
And just to kind of build on that though, you know, that so when we came in off that session, he had towed me down to 7 seconds off my previous PB, which at the time back then, you know, that put me into like the 210 range at NCM, which at the time was advanced group pace. It's not anymore. Our advanced riders have gotten ridiculously fast at NCM. But I honestly, and who knows Andy will tell you, he's like one of the happiest people you'll ever meet. He was happier about what had happened out there as far as cutting that time off and learning things and stuff like that. He was considerably happier about it than even I was, and I was elated, right? And like I said, that made a pretty lasting impression on me. And I was like, man, you know, one day if I was ever to coach, I'd want to be like Andy Forrest, you know. So if he's not super active on Facebook these days, we do see him around every once in a while. Hopefully we'll see him out there this year. But no, he made a lasting impression in you know, that was when I didn't know it at the time, but probably that's when the seed was kind of planted about, well, maybe I could help other people get gooder on the racetrack, right? You know, and I'm not an expert, you know. That's part of the reason I thought it was funny when you're like, hey, we should do a podcast. And I'm like, me? Like, I basically don't even race, or, you know, I'm not super interesting or whatever, but, you know, but the thing is just, you know, that was when I was like, all right, well, maybe I could help people, or that kind of fostered that idea. Like, maybe I could help people, if, you know, those who can't teach, right? So maybe I can help people get better.
Yeah, I mean, that's the whole, you know, part of your journey is giving back. You know, you're fairly new to it, so to speak, and what you've learned and give back to people is absolutely amazing. Yeah, dude. Why wouldn't I want to sit down and have this chat with you, Mike, Matthew, Matt? Right? Like, come on, man. I love it. It's good, man. You know, everybody brings their own certain energy. Everybody brings their own ideas and their own certain element to it, right? And that's, again, is also what makes it a unique and beautiful sport too, as well. And the family and friends you meet out of the whole thing is just, I mean, that's just icing on the cake, you know. Nobody ever. We're constantly learning. We're constantly evolving. We're constantly learning, right? In life and on the track too, as well. It's just like I told my buddy the other day. I was like, dude, nobody in the world's got it 100% figured out in bike racing. He's like, yeah, dude, Valentino Rossi and Nicky Henderson, no, they didn't. They're continually growing and progressing, right? To find to push to that limit, to get faster and faster. I said, shit. At the end of Rossi's career, he was going faster than he's ever been around a racetrack. It was just his time not to be you know, racing two wheels anymore. So well, at least he thought so. I miss him, but whatever. That's a whole nother thing.
Careful,
so,
you'll anger all the Marc Marquez fanboys out there.
Yeah, I know that this is a whole nother conversation, right? Yes, because then I get mad text messages. You fucking suck. Okay, whatever. I'm cool with that. Yeah. Michael Kellum says, I'm about to call your cell phone to mess you up. He's like, I'm waiting on you.
Let's go.
I'm waiting. Let's freaking go, boy. Oh, Scotty says we want to see the seltzers.
You know they're happening.
And what seltzer are you drinking?
It is just your standard run-of-the-mill White Claw.
I don't think I've ever had a White Claw, to be honest with you.
Yeah. So I take a lot of flack for drinking White Claws in the whatever. I don't care, right? Like whatever. It's become my jam. I used to be like real boozer, hard liquor drinker. And but the problem is I drink, you know, if I drink booze, I'm mixing it with soda, with, you know, fruit juice, with energy drinks, whatever, you know. So it's like, you know, if I sit down and tie one off, I'm gonna drink, you know, 14,000 calories of sugary drinks, right? And I got, you know, when I started track, you know, doing track days and stuff like that, I was a boozer for sure, you know, like the hard alcohol. I was a smoker, you know, especially if I was drinking, I was a heavy smoker. And pretty quickly I realized on the racetrack that, you know, it takes far more out of you physically than I would have ever thought. I'm like, you're just riding a motorcycle. How hard could it be? Brother, it is hard. Okay. And so very quickly I realized that I needed to lose some weight. I needed to get in shape. I needed to quit smoking. I needed to quit boozing, you know. And so believe it or not, I actually got healthier because of the racetrack. I came home, quit smoking cold turkey, you know, quit with the hard alcohol. And then, but I still did like, you know, I'm not a huge beer drinker, but I drink beer or you know, just whatever I could find that wasn't hard alcohol, you know, that kind of became my go-to, but still it's super unhealthy. So then when I got, you know, kind of doubled down on trying to lose weight and get in shape, I started running a lot and stuff like that. And then that's when I switched to seltzers, because the seltzers are, you know, so low calorie and low carb, right? The White Claws are 1 carb per can, right? So I started doing that because I became a big runner. I was running anywhere from like 3 to 12 miles a day. So I got into the habit of just kind of choking down seltzers, and then they kind of became an acquired taste, and they stuck with me. So seltzers it is.
Seltzer it is. I love it.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to try one. Dude, we got another legend in the house, Chris Parrish. Chris, I've been giving you a shout out.
Oh shit, Chris Parrish,
bro. And dude, I always talk about Ghetto Custom Bodyworks, best in the business. So.
Yeah, hell yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Chris is great. You know, when I was in, hell, I think I was still intermediate group. I did a track day with Chris Parrish one time, and he told me around. He dropped down in the I was in intermediate group, because he dropped down into intermediate group, told me around a little bit, showed me a few things that really helped make, you know, a few things click for me too. But yeah, Chris, absolute legend. The Twins Cup champ in the house, right?
That's right.
We get to hang out with Chris every once in a while. He'll come pit with us at you know, particularly at NCM or whatever, but he'll come pit with us every once in a while, do a track day and you know, get some seat time in or whatever. So always good to spend time with the champ.
Absolutely, it is. I hope I'm gonna be able to run into him at Daytona. Chris, you gonna be at Daytona in 2 weeks' time, or Road Atlanta? I'm sure I'll run into you at the pits for sure. Michael says, I made Mike Matt a boner section in his suit. Dude, that's a good idea, man, for sure. 110%. I love it, dude.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So I it's too bad I don't actually have the suit sitting out here, but yeah, Kellum, you know, Hyper Naked brand stuff. I've only been riding Hyper Naked brands, you know, for several years now. He made me the most off the wall suit you've ever seen. you know, when we sat down and put pencil to paper and said, "What's your new suit going to look like?" We both immediately agreed that we were not going to take anything seriously. This didn't have to be something that was gorgeous. What it had to be was something that when I walked through the paddock, everybody would just be like, "What the hell was
Does
that?"
he have
You
on?
know?
Yeah, what the hell is that?
Yeah. So yeah, no, we made it was so good. We did it twice. I have a backup suit that's the same design, but it's the the Hyper Naked brand stuff is. I mean, if we were just talking about like custom suits and Bison and stuff like that, and like they're all great manufacturers. The Hyper Naked is top tier for the R&D that Michael's put into his products. Like he will not skimp on the safety and the technology. Integrated airbags and all that. He's recently partnered with Helite to do a whole solution with Helite. It's great stuff, but beyond that, one of the big niches for Kellum and Hyper Naked brand is just like whatever you could possibly imagine, no matter how harebrained or off the wall it is, he can get that on a suit for you. And a lot of people will know some of the suits that he's put out that are just absolutely mind-boggling insane. Mine, he did a Wonder Woman for Daniela. A lot of the TDJU people recognize that name, Daniela. She's got a Wonder Woman suit that was just absolutely insane. Joey Kim, he's got a handful of Hyper Naked suits, but his are all just absolutely off the wall. So great stuff. Kellum he's not afraid to put anything on that leather, man. Like, and I mean anything. Anybody who's seen his recent partnership with, what is it, 94 Degrees, the undersuit?
64.
He 64. Sorry. Yeah. He just did a partnership with them for a limited run of undersuits that were like hentai, or however you pronounce that, like just off the wall stuff. He just won't make a normal suit, So good stuff.
I love it. Yeah, and 64 Degree Racing Tate, he's absolutely amazing. I got a custom 2-piece right there undersuit that he actually made for me.
Oh yeah.
He's absolutely amazing. Speaking of TDJU, I definitely want to touch base on that. And that Daniela girl, she don't like me at all, but I have no idea why. But anyway, that's a whole nother story. Daniel says, make sure you ask him about the Honda ABS ring sensors.
Yeah, that's a whole nother story also.
we'll save that for part 2.
Yeah, we'll get
there. Yeah. Scotty, that's awesome. Scotty says, I didn't drink White Claw until I met Mike Matt, but I also didn't sit down when I peed until then either. Oh my God.
But yeah, I first met Scotty at Barber. For I think the first time we met, I was at a Moto America ground down there. I was just down there, spectating. Obviously I'm not a Moto America racer myself. I was down there just for the event. I think that's the first time I ever met Scotty. Definitely top tier people, especially when it comes to the corner workers and the FBF people. All of those Scotty and Paige. They're my people for sure.
Big shout out to all the corner marshal workers, because without you and the air fences, we wouldn't be able to show up and have fun at the track. So thank you guys so much. It's nothing but love to every single one of you guys and girls. That's for all y'all right there. Let's see. Andrew says 2 a.m. TDJU 34 White Claws deep.
Yep.
Oh my God.
That's when things get good. TDJ after dark.
Yeah, right. So let's just go ahead and talk. How did all that come about? How did you end up with TDJU and all that good stuff?
Well, so I am not TDJU. I just happen to be one of the shit posters, right? The way I recall it. Here's the story. The way I recall it, and John can correct me if I'm wrong, but in a nutshell. Several years back, what we call vanilla TDJ, the primary Track Day Junkies Facebook page, they cracked down on some of the more lighthearted posts, memes, and general shenaniganry, which is fine. They just felt like it didn't bring any value to the page. They wanted it to be more seriously track focused. And so John Blizdak, the legend, he went and made TDJ Unleashed. He's like, all right, well, we're going to take our ball and we'll go elsewhere. And so I just happened to be aware of that at the time. And so I was one of the first people to join TDU just by happenstance. I was like, all right, because I was aware of, I think I even had a few posts removed from TDJ, because I had posted memes or whatever it was. And they're just like, well, we're not doing that on this page anymore, so whatever. So I was aware that John, I didn't know who John was, but I was aware that somebody had fired up this Track Day Junkies Unleashed page. I was like, all right, well, let's go see what that's all about. So I joined the page pretty early on in, of course, as we all know, the page then kind of morphed and evolved into this unholy cesspool of shenaniganry that it is today. But it was, it was great, especially in the early days. It was so great because it was everything was original content. We all were doing the shit posting with just like content that we created, memes and jokes and whatever it was. John's done a pretty good job over the years keeping it kind of that mindset. There's no rules other than we always joke. There's one rule in TDJU, and that is we don't sell anything, right? Every once in a while, somebody will come in there and they'll make a for sale post, and then we eat them alive and delete the post, make fun of them.
I did that shit on purpose. I was like, you know what? Fuck this.
Yeah. But no, I mean, TDJU is a great place because it's like you can just kind of let your hair down and just go screw around. It's like nothing is off limits. And we cut up and we harass and make fun and all these other things. And of course, every once in a while somebody will get too wound up about it and get all up in their feet and whatever. But as far as I'm concerned, if you're one of the talking heads in there that can dish it all out, man, you better sit down and take it sometimes too, because you never know what the flavor of the week is going to be, and whatever that flavor of the week is, we tend to go pretty hard on it for a while until something new catches the eye, right? So, but yeah, no, it's fun, and I haven't been around there much lately. I started a new job this summer, and just been crazy busy, but I love getting that flavor of the week and then start brainstorming on meme ideas and stuff like that. I think probably top tier for that page was when we went through our ton phase. For somebody made a meme that involved Top Gun, but made it motorcycle related, and man, it was off to the races, no pun intended. And I think we went like 2 or 3 weeks solid, where all we did was make memes that somehow related to Top Gun. And I mean, that was top tier TDJU, right there. But there's endless backstories and topics and stuff like that. So they come and go, and anytime something comes up, everybody fires up the meme engines and starts making all kinds of horrible memes. It comes and goes, but
I love it. I think it's I get a lot of laughs out of it. Put it that way.
It's well, and that's the thing. It's like I encourage anybody to join the page if you're not. But you got to buckle up when you get in there sometimes, man. And a lot of lurkers. There are a lot of people that they're just there from they're there with their popcorn, just watching the shit show unfold, daily. Especially during the winter when we've all got nothing better to do, and then tempers start flaring and the drama comes out, and whatever it happens to be. There's certain people in there that don't like the jokes. Apparently, I don't know. Soft, super soft.
I mean,
they'll slap you with a cease and desist. Type of stuff.
It's like, but yeah, fuck you, buddy. Check this one out, right? And you're like, oh my god, I can't believe you just did that again. We're like, oh, he fucking did it. Watch this.
Wait, there's more.
Yeah,
I can go lower.
This ain't it. Yeah, I can watch this. Check this one out. Yeah, I love it, dude. I think it's great, man, because it's again, I think there's too many people in this world. Don't be so serious, people. It's not that
right.
Dude,
nobody gets out alive, obviously, as the adage goes. But the other thing is, every once in a while, that page will pull together and do something wholesome.
Absolutely.
Like a couple of years ago, I think it was 2 years ago. Brian Van, the almighty Brian Van, is in the page. Max Van is in the page. A couple of great dudes. But Brian Van made a post in there one day, like 2 years ago, whatever it was, and he was talking about body work. For Max's ride, I think that was back when Max was still in Junior Cup, and we crowdsourced or crowdfunded, whatever you want to call it. We all pitched in and paid for 2 sets of body work and deliveries, or whatever it was. I I think it was two sets of bodywork and the liveries, or maybe it was just the liveries, or whatever it was. But so Brian had joked around that if TDJU made it happen, that he'd put TDJU on the bike, on the Moto America bike. And sure enough, we made it happen, and he did it. We crowdfunded that livery. And so if you go back and look at some of Max's races from Junior Cup 2 years ago, there's TDJU like 3 feet big across the side of that bike. So it's like, of course, we were all real proud of ourselves because like we made the big time, Moto America televised, coast to coast, and here's TDJU on the side of that bike. We all thought it was the funniest thing in the world. I think Brian thought it was funnier than any of us. It was hysterical. But then just yesterday, Brandon Posh, he's looking for some assistance getting on the grid for Daytona, right? And I don't know how much money we raised for that, but it sounds like TDJU may very well have played a huge part getting Posh onto the track for Daytona here. So we're a bunch of degenerates, and in the shenaniganry that goes on in TDJU is next level for sure. But at the end of the day, there's we talk about all the great people that you find around the racetracks and the paddocks and stuff like that. Well, guess what? They're all in TU too, and we make real things happen. And there are a lot of people in that group that will, in real life, when you take out the BS social media aspect of it, and we're not making fun and goofing off and everything like that. You find those people in the paddock, they give you the shirt off their back.
100%. Yeah, I shared it too. I know Posh. He's a friend of mine. Dude, what a legend. I don't see. I'm still confused. Fucking baffled. Like, how don't a 2-time Daytona 200 not have a ride, right? Like, but it's just the way.
Need that third Rolex.
Yeah, get that third Rolex, man. He deserves to be there. Actually, Michael Kellum says, yeah, okay. So he said that Mike Matt to BP coin didn't happen, sadly. And then Scotty says he made the grid, which he did make the grid.
Yeah, I saw that today.
Yeah, yep. He did. Shout out to BP. Yep. Yeah, it's
so in the interest of full disclosure, Kellum and I were joking about it a little bit, and I'll say this out loud because anything I say, if I'm talking shit behind someone's back, anything I say, I'll say to your face. So in the interest of kind of that vein, Kellum and I were joking about Posh, and like, wouldn't it be funny if TDJU raised all this money and he just pocketed it and walked away and never even gridded up at Daytona? So we were equating it to it was Kellum's brainchild, but we were equating to the Haktua meme coin, the crypto coin, that they rugged, and he's like, this is like Haktua meme coin 2.0, like. Posh is going to pocket all this money and just walk away, So,
thanks, guys.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
I mean, dude, listen, I love it. I love TDJU. I'm always on there. I don't post very much on there. I need to start more. I got a lot going on in my personal life.
Just got to make sure you got thick skin before you start posting.
Man, I ain't worried about that. Dude, listen, I talk shit to all my you'll know I'll start talking shit to you. I say, dude, if I talk shit to you, I like you, right?
I'm the same way.
Part of being friends. So it's
yeah.
I can definitely dish it out. I can definitely take it. Actually, I just laugh at it because at the end we're just having fun. But there is those people that get majorly butthurt, and take it so serious. Again, it's not serious. Yeah, I'm glad that Posh is going to be there. So hopefully he'll win a third Rolex, and yeah, let's fucking go, people, bro. So dude, your wife, I met my wife on a blind date, bro. How did you end up meeting your wife, and let's talk about the whole BTI photo she does for you.
Yeah, so Trish and I met so I told you earlier, I'm really introverted, which is true generally, but if you get enough liquor in me, maybe less so. And I'm also half Irish.
I'll put that to the test.
Yeah, I'm also half Irish, and so St. Paddy's Day is a big deal, right? So the first time Trish and I met, I was at a St. Paddy's Day party in a bar in a tiny little town up in north central Minnesota, in a big Paddy's Day party with a lot of my friends at this little bar, and I was deep into the whiskeys that night, and I was on the bar dancing with a green bowler cap on, and we didn't know each other, but we had mutual friends, and some of my friends were at the party, some of her friends were at the party, and so that's how she ended up there. But yeah, so the first time we met, that's how we met. I was half drunk dancing in the bar for a St. Patty's Day party, and so we met, and then we hung out a little bit and exchanged numbers, started talking a little bit, and then we started officially kind of started dating pretty quickly. We didn't date long at all. We were engaged within 3 months. Believe it or not.
Sounds like me and my wife. Yeah, it sounds like me and my wife for sure.
Yeah. And so we were engaged after 3 months. And then we got, our wedding was 9 months after that, and then we've been married for 17 years.
Congratulations. Me and my wife been married since 2008. We got engaged, I think, within like 3 weeks of being with each other. Lived together for a year, then got married. And then since then, it's a little inside running joke. I'm trying to give her back to her dad, and he won't take her back for some reason. I don't know why, but whatever, So yeah, it's she's one of my biggest supporters in the world when it comes to doing this. And if I didn't have her in my corner for any of this, I wouldn't probably be married anymore, right? So yeah.
Well, and Trish is the same way. She was with the whole motorcycle stuff. Like I said, she was a little hesitant on some of the stuff initially. But as soon as we started going to the racetrack and really wrapping our heads around what that meant and what the experience is like and the people you meet and everything else like that, she's all in right alongside me. And we started meeting so many people around the racetrack, and it was like we would go to a racetrack and just rent a garage and do our own thing, and and doing that all the way up to meeting some of the people that are now part of kind of the core group in the Nashville area that we do track days with. Daniel Shoemake, one of the big drivers there, Robert Langford and Trevor Watson, Travis Mills, all these guys that make up, we call it, Robert kind of established it, but it's Team Sloppy Sprockets. But, there were, in the heyday of Team Sloppy Sprockets doing track days together, we would do events at NCM where there'd be, I think at our peak, we had 25 people all pitting together and like 28 bikes. We had 5 RV spots. It's like for a while there, we did it big. And, Trish was always a huge part of that. And the more time that we spent around the paddocks and meeting all these people and becoming more and more involved, and then, that kind of drove the progression to me then working with some of these organizations, start coaching. Well, Trish, she's always kind of like the photography stuff. And then several years back, we bought together, a big fancy Nikon camera. And she'd run around the paddock, just goofing off, taking pictures. And she'd also stand at the fence as best she could and take pictures of us on the track and stuff like that. And she kind of has a knack for it. And so she turned that hobby into a little bit more of a passion. And started a couple years ago, she started BTI Photo. And again, a lot of people out there, you're going to know that name. She takes phenomenal pictures, and she puts a lot of work into what she does out there. But so she's now, last several years, she's been the official photographer for Fastline Track Days. So we've become more and more incorporated with them in that every weekend we're at that racetrack. It's a full weekend for us. I'm coaching the whole weekend. She's doing photography the whole weekend. So that's become, as far as the Fastline Track Days organization goes, that's our thing. When we're at the racetrack, she's doing photography and I'm doing the coaching. She also got a media pass. She did some Moto America photography. Got out there last year at Barber. Did photography back there with Moto, or not for Moto America, but during the Moto America events, so that she was able to get out there inside the track for the whole Moto America event, do a whole bunch of photography like that. She actually ended up shooting so Vance and Hines came to NCM. I think that was last summer, maybe the summer before, whenever it was. Vance and Hines came with JD Beach and Hayden Gillum, with the bagger stuff, right? So Vance and Hines was there, with all the Harley stuff. And they brought over from the UK, they brought one of their professional photographers over, and, he wanted to get on track and do photography during that track day. While they were doing test and tune at the track day, he wanted to get promotional material for Vance and Hines for Harley Davidson. And so he actually ended up working with Trish to do that. I wish I could remember his name because he's some high end professional photographer that works directly with Vance and Hines. And but so he ended up working with her the whole day. She basically towed him around because she knows the track, she knows where to take the best shots, where the angles are, what corners to do that photography, and so she was able to kind of cart him around. And so a lot of the pictures that he took then ended up in the promotional stuff for Vance and Hines. So that was a really cool experience. But all that to say that she's just as heavily involved in the track stuff as I am, just not as a rider. We joke about it. One day I maybe will get her on a bike, but we'll see.
We got to. And speaking of which, Patricia Wagner Matt says, "Hey, handsome man, thank you so much. I appreciate that." No, she's talking to you.
Yeah. Well, no, she's talking to you for sure. She's a flirt. No, she wasn't sure if she was going to be able to tune in because she's actually traveling for work right now. So we live just outside of Nashville, and she's down in South Carolina, North Carolina. I don't know. She's somewhere southeast. I forgot where she said she's gone. She's traveling for work right now though. So she landed in Atlanta just a couple hours ago, and so we weren't sure if she was going to make it.
Well, thank you for joining. It's an honor to have you here. Chris says, "Are any of you guys going to the 200?" I will be there. Trust me.
That's a great question.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to make it to the 200, but hopefully, literally everybody else does. Hopefully, I'm the only person east of the Mississippi that doesn't go to the 200.
I love it. And listen, dude, if anybody wants to meet up, you trust me, you can't miss me. I'll be in this or my other shirt walking around. I'll post my number down. You just hit me up and we'll definitely link up because I want to meet everybody down there too as well. Tim says, how did Trish get her first photo gig?
That's a good point. So once again, Tim was very good friends with a number of the photographers at 129 Photo. Of course, they shoot a lot of the events for STT, and so Tim went to his friends at 129 Photo and said, "Hey, look, we got somebody who's doing some motorsports photography. She's just kind of learning the ropes." And he talked one of them into doing a kind of a ride along. So they one of Tim's friends at 129 kind of took Trish under his wing for a day at Barber and let her kind of shadow him. So that was that. And to Tim's point, that probably is what kind of sowed that seed for Trish. To actually get onto the racetrack, get behind the Armco and stuff like that, and start taking some of that photography and learn, some of the stuff that 129 had to offer. She came home from that event pretty excited, and it was good because I was riding that event. That was before I was a coach, so I was just riding with STT. So she was excited not only to be behind the Armco inside the racetrack taking pictures, but she snapped a few of me, which is fun out there. I think that was I was an intermediate group still with STT back then, and so I'm just gooning around, still pretty squiddly, but still fun.
It always is. You're right. Absolutely, dude. It's freaking amazing, man. I love it, man. So, dude, big shout out to BTI Photos.
BTI Photo, yeah. And she gives back. She also gives back a lot. She gives back with sponsorships, either named sponsorships. So, like you did a podcast with Trevor Watson here a few weeks back, TW800 on the Honda. So we sponsor. It's not a big deal, but BTI Photo sponsors Trevor at all of his Moto America rounds. We usually try to help him cover some tire costs or whatever it is. And then she does big sponsorship. If you I for quotes, but it is a sponsorship. For Fastline Track Days, all the coaches get their pictures for free. Just kind of give back to the organization and the sport that way. And unofficially, she's worked with many riders, both track day riders and racers, to cut them some deals, give them some promotional material, coupon codes, whatever it is. She heavily gives back to the sport too. She's not just out there snapping photos and taking paychecks, right?
I love it. An ambassador for the sport. Patricia, you're absolutely amazing. Yeah, that's awesome, man. I love it. Dude, bro, this has been absolutely amazing. We've already been on this for an hour and 10 minutes almost. It goes by like this, man.
I know it does.
Man, I can't wait to come down and actually hang out with you, spend the weekend with you, and be alone with that bike back there in the background, if you know what I mean. No, I'm just joking.
Nothing to see there.
Oh my God, this is awesome. So listen, I want to transition into where we get to know Mike Matt on a personal level, away from all that stuff and the leathers and the coaching and all that. So can't even talk right now. Let me ask you this. What is your future goals as far as coaching and track days go?
Yeah, that's a really good question, and it's something I've been, putting a lot of thought to. We not this January, but last January, just kind of on a whim, a few of us went down to Jennings and did the first annual Separano Endurance Classic. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but
Yep.
That was Jeff Servin, you obviously know, and then my good friend Abe Murphy. It was actually his bike. It was his ride. It was his idea. We went down there just on a whim. Like, hey, let's, it's January, nothing better to do. Let's run down to Jennings and do this endurance race. And funny enough, side note, Abe and I actually met because of TDJU. We were both on TDJU, and we got to kind of know each other via Facebook that way. And then one day I was at the racetrack, just walking down the paddock, and all of a sudden here's this crazy dude with a gray beard, like, Mike. I'm like, who the hell is this guy? Like, what is going on here? And he's like, you are Mike Matt, right? I'm like, yeah. And he's like, Abe Murphy. And that was the first time I met Abe Murphy, and we've become practically inseparable ever since. So, TDJU connections, I don't know what we call that. Anyway, so it was Abe's idea. It was his bike. We went down there on a bone stock 400, and the weekend that we ended up having was just, it was something else. We went down there with zero expectations in just to have fun. I'd never done endurance racing. I basically haven't raced at all. I got a WERA license and did a couple of things with WERA very, very briefly a couple of years ago. But aside from that, I've never raced. I'm not a racer. I've never done endurance racing, and I wasn't sure that was really a great option anyway, because I'm the guy that comes in after a 20-minute session just sucking wind, like, now you want me to do an endurance race, okay. But yeah, so we entered his 400 in the 2-3 hours back to back on Saturday. I'd never ridden Jennings, never done an endurance race, and for all intents and purposes had never really ridden Abe's bike other than coaching a couple of sessions on it. And man, we went down there and we took first place in the first race, only because Michael Coria was there with his whole crew, and they're absolute phenoms. Obviously, they very unfortunately they blew an engine partway through the race, which was what allowed us to take first. Otherwise, they would have beat us for sure. But then the second race, we still took second place, and it was Michael Coria's crew that beat us. But man, we just had a ball, and we needed a fourth rider, and so we started looking around. We had a few people we talked to who just couldn't make the weekend or whatever it was, and we ended up reaching out to Tim and Eli Banish, and it was like, hey, does Eli want to get some seat, man? Like, hell yeah, let's go, So we joked that it's Abe and I just kind of old and fat and riding on a 400 that's too small for us. It was really Eli that probably put us on the box, but a win's a win. I'll take it, right?
A W is a W. Facts.
Yeah. So all of that to say that I don't have the competitive drive. Not that it's not there, but it's not as pronounced as many people. And so I don't racing is really in the future, but I may go ahead and renew the WERA license and go do a couple of rounds just for grins. Certainly keep coaching for a little bit and just kind of see where it goes. So to answer your question, I don't really have goals, so to speak, other than just to keep on keeping on. It's like just doing what makes me happy, right? Like, you and I were talking about when we were on the phone the other day. We're just like, I constantly tell people at the racetrack, if I see you and you're not smiling, we're gonna have a chat about that. Like, if you're at a racetrack, man, if you're not smiling, you're doing it wrong, right? So as long as I can show up at the racetrack and have fun, keep that smile on my face and help put that smile on other people's face, that's the goal for now. And I'm not thinking too far beyond that.
I love it, man. I love it. It's dude, do you actually name any of your motorcycles?
No, hell no. I think that's the dumbest thing in the world. Offense to anybody who does. I think if you name a vehicle, a motorcycle, whatever it is, I think you're an absolute idiot. I probably still love you, but I think you're an idiot. I refuse to name anything. That's just dumb.
I love it. I love it. Yeah, when I first got into them, of course, I used to call my dad's bike. I'd be like, "Oh, that's blah blah blah, whatever." And then once I really got into riding, I'm like, it's just a tool that I use to make me happy and smile, right? So
well, and that's exactly it. Like, why would you name something? They always say, like with pets and stuff like that, right? Like, as soon as you name it, you get attached. Well, if I'm just going to throw it into the gravel and turn one, I don't want to be attached to it.
I love it, dude. Andrew says he named me Daddy. I love it, dude. Oh my god, I love it. I love it, dude. So, are you a coffee drinker, bro?
Yeah. I had to back off the coffee a while back. So I work in IT, and years ago when I had my first real IT job, I had just a standard coffee pot at my desk, and I would drink an entire pot every day before lunch. And I had to kind of back off of that, but I definitely still drink coffee. I usually, so I work IT and I'm hybrid, so some days I'm in the office, some days I work from home, which is if I'm in the office, I'll usually make a thermos for the drive-in because it's a pretty long commute, and then I'll have one or two more cups maybe while I'm at work. If I'm working from home, I usually have maybe 2 cups. But yeah, so I definitely drink coffee every day. I'm not a huge coffee drinker, but it happens. That's an odd question you ask.
Yeah, I mean it's just a question that I just I'm gonna ask it, right?
Yeah.
Here's another one I'm gonna ask you. Tell us something we don't know about you.
Wow. Something you don't know about me. I used to play the piano and I pretty well. I actually recently, Trish has been begging. I have a keyboard still, which I haven't touched in years. And every year at Christmas, if nothing else, every year at Christmas, she always begs me to play the piano. She's like, just play some Christmas music, and I just never do. I haven't, for whatever reason. I used to be pretty good at playing the piano and took lessons for years on it and stuff. This Christmas, she finally talked me into it. I sat down and played the piano for her for like an hour or whatever it was. So hugely rusty, but I still got it a little bit, knocked off the cobwebs a little bit. But yeah, it used to be a huge pianist. Have fun with that word.
I love it, dude. I love it. It's good, man. I love music, right? It's good for the soul. It was saying that, what's your worst habit, bro?
What is my worst habit? Probably throwing out the brakes too early into turn one.
Oops. Right? Oops.
Yeah. No, I mean, yeah, I don't know. I probably that I overthink and I overcomplicate things. I'm definitely a person who gets in my own head a little bit.
Yeah.
I didn't know we were going super Dr. Phil on this call, but yeah, certainly I definitely tend to overthink things and I get in my own head and kind of get in my own way sometimes.
Surprise, it's the Simcoe Phil show going on right now on the podcast, dude. I love it, man. Well, I mean, it's the way it's like, I've been such a fan for obviously the sport and like Doug Chandler and all them. So when I met all my heroes growing up, when I go to back when it was AMA Superbike race, and I never, I wasn't the guy. Of course, I wanted a picture. I really didn't give a shit about the autographs, right? But I sat back and everybody was always, talking about the races, So when I approached them, I wanted to ask them something completely different that don't have to do with the races, like what's for dinner tonight. And they just look at you like, wait, what? Like they're not used to hearing that. And then, cause I want to have a genuine conversation with you for a minute, just kind of pick your brain, get to know you more as a human, which you are, not this alien, fast, super, human on a motorcycle.
You calling me slow? It sounds like you just kind of underhandedly called me slow. I mean, it's true, so that's fine, but I feel like that's what's happening here. Like, get a load of this slow guy.
You like how I did that, didn't you? He's like, wait a minute, Simcoe's talking shit. I love it, dude. I told you we're gonna have a good time on this, Mike. Man, come on. Everybody knows I'm a big audiobook listener too. I listen to a shit ton of audiobooks. Do you do that too as well?
I don't, and it's one of those things that I keep meaning to do. I used to be a huge reader, huge reader, and I really kind of lost touch with books for some reason. And like I was saying, my commute. So I live about an hour west of Nashville, and when I'm in the office for work, it's Nashville, so I've got an hour commute both ways. Usually it's more like an hour and 10 But anyway, so I've been really meaning to, and Trish has been pushing me. She's like, "You've got all that dead time in the car. Like, start listening to podcasts. Like the Pin the Gas podcast. I've heard that's great." Um, but she pushes me to start listening to some of these audiobooks and stuff like that. And it's one of those things I've been meaning to. I'm not there yet. I did start listening to a few podcasts when I was working out more. Something else I need to pick back up. Track season, the motorcycle season is quickly upon us. So I need to get back onto the. I'm sitting right next to my rowing machine, stationary bike, and my treadmill that I have out here in the shop next to my motorcycles, and need to get my ass back on those. But yeah, all of that to say, probably I am. So the short answer is no. I don't listen to audiobooks, but I'm probably fixing to soon because I'm between the commute and the exercising that I have to start. Abe, Abe, my good friend Abe, he keeps pushing me. We wear these fitness straps so we can keep track of what he's doing jiu-jitsu and he's running and he's doing all this stuff. And he messaged me time to time. He's like, "Oh, I'm kicking your ass on the whoop." I'm like, "Yeah, well, I'm still sitting on my ass." So, but yeah, so no, I really should start doing more of the audiobooks and stuff like that. So if you've got a couple of favorites, shoot them my way, and maybe you can be the catalyst for me starting to get more serious about the audiobooks.
Listen, I listen to a shit ton, so I will definitely text you after the podcast and drop you. I'll start with 3, and you just pick and choose, and they're great, man. It's man, you learn so much listening to audiobooks, and it's just a fun time, instead of listening to music and the same songs all the fucking time. Daytona, my dad going to Daytona, I was like, "Dad, I got this and this we're listening to." He's like, "Is it a podcast?" I was like, "One is, yes, but the others are audiobooks." He's like, "Okay, yeah. I'll go to sleep." You do you, right?
Well, and part of the problem is, so I talk about this commute when I'm on the days in office. More often than not, I drive all the way to the office in the morning and I drive all the way home from the office in the afternoon in silence. And that's just one of many things that are just fundamentally wrong with me as a person, right? Like I can drive an hour and 10 in complete silence and I'm totally fine with that.
I love it, dude. I love it. Dude, you know what though? It's funny you said that because sometimes I'm the same way. I'm like, fuck, I'll just shut everything off and just yep. Listen to me, right? And I'm like you, dude. Sometimes, dude, I get into my own head sometimes, and it's
yeah. Well, and it's part of that to me is like I genuinely enjoy driving, and it drives Trish nuts because the world is my racetrack, right? And I genuinely enjoy driving, and if I'm in the vehicle and I'm driving, that's what I'm doing. I'm not texting. I'm not looking at Facebook. I'm not listening to music. I'm not doing audiobooks. I'm driving. In I'm driving with intentionality, often wildly above the speed limit and bobbing and weaving on the
and talking mad shit to everybody on the road.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
Take your mask off. What is wrong with you? Pull up beside him and like, "Do you sleep with a condom on at night too?" Wait, what?
My favorite thing to scream at people as I'm frustrated with them only doing 8 over in the left lane. I'm like, the left lane is for crime. Okay, if you're not willing to risk a felony, get out of the way.
Get the fuck out of the way. I used to have a sticker inside my car that said "Road Rage World Champion."
Yeah,
talk cash shit, So I've been informed. Did you have to tell me the story of when you crashed out leading a novice race?
Oh yeah, novice. No, it wasn't a novice race. It was just a track day that I was doing novice. I was coaching novice. So that was 3 years ago, probably. It was the first track event of the season, so it was early April, I think. Bowling Green, Kentucky, NCM. And it was one of those days. We woke up Saturday morning and it was like 31 degrees out. It was right around freezing. And so I went down to detect that morning or whatever and got the assignments and everything. All right, I'm coaching novice. And so I was on my 2011 ZX6 on a set of TD the Pirelli TDs, like an SC3 compound. Took the novices out first session, made it to turn 8, and I was looking behind me coming up towards turn 8, and then I turned back around and I just started to tip into turn 8. Of course, cold first session novice, we were doing like 12 miles an hour, and I looked back in front of me and I started to turn into turn 8, and just over it went. We were going so slow. I was wearing, I have a Alpinestars Tech Air race. We were going so slow it didn't deploy. And it was great because
it said, "Quit fucking playing, dude. What are you doing?"
Yeah. Well, as it turns out, and nobody hold me to this, but I was curious as to why it didn't deploy. And so I did some research when I came back in from the session. And I think my recollection is that what I discovered was that there's a threshold, like there's a geometric threshold or whatever you want to call it in there, where if you're going under 25 miles an hour, it won't deploy. So that's literally, when I say we were going like 12 miles an hour, I mean it. Like we were any slower and we would have tipped over. Or maybe that was the problem. We were going so slow that I actually tipped over. I don't know, but it was the funniest thing in the world. Especially because, so I tip over and, just kind of slide out into the runoff a little bit there in turn 8. And like 3 of these novices have no idea what they're doing, bless their little hearts. They followed me right off the track. They're like, all right, well, coach goes, here we go. So, and I'm still sliding and like, but also trying to stand up, and I'm like waving them, like, no, what are you doing? Go, like, go. And then immediately I look at the corner worker, because it happened to be right in front of the corner worker. And I was like, do not call that in. Do not call the crash truck. I'm fine. I am riding this bike back in. Like if nothing else, we are absolutely not going to be in a situation where I come in out of the novice session on the crash truck. So don't tell Chris. Well, actually, it doesn't matter, because I think that was when I was still with Midwest Track Day. So don't tell Jeff Wheat. But yeah, I picked that bike back up and I just kept going. I was just like, this is insane. How on earth does this happen? But yeah, so definitely the running joke. That's one that will never be lived down. Crashing first session, first lap, novice group coaching. Yeah.
Airbag didn't even deploy. Like,
good,
wait,
yeah,
what are you
good
doing?
stuff.
Right? Yeah. Well,
but all that ties back into what you and I keep talking about, where it's like, man, you can't take it too seriously, man. Nobody gets out alive. If you can't make fun of yourself, what the hell are we doing here?
Bro, that's
so, and I dish it out. I make fun of anybody and for anything, and I cut up like the rest of them. So I'll take it on the chin, when it's my turn. Right? I'll own that one.
You got to, right? That's what makes you too. It's I've done some dumb shit like that, and they're like, what the fuck, dude? I was like, hey, at least I had my inflatable thongs on today, right? That saved me down below. And they're just looking at me like, wait, what? I'm like, yes, let's go. It's again, if you can't make fun of yourself, it's what the fuck are you doing, right? One thing that I do before my podcast is I have a conversation with myself in the mirror, and sometimes I make fun of myself. I crack and joke, and my son catches me. He's like, his first time he caught me, he just peeps around the corner. He says, Dad. I was like, yeah. He says, what the fuck are you doing? And my son was 11 at the time, right? I was like, I'm having a conversation with myself. He's like, oh, and just slowly backs out the room. Right?
Well, sometimes you need an expert opinion,
You do, right? You do. He keeps me humble. And that's why, one of my worst habits, I used to smoke cigarettes. I quit smoking when Rossi was 6 months old. And then, of course, I picked up vaping, right? And I kept telling Rossi, dude, this. And finally, one day, he looks at me, bro, Mike, and he's like, well, you keep telling me all this shit, but you never do what you say you're going to do with the vaping thing. So how you going to hold me accountable? And I was like, dude, way to fucking stick it to your dad, bro. I love it, right? So I immediately came home, gave my vape, gave my juice, and I've been on a month and a half, and I haven't went back since.
Good work.
So
yeah. No, and that's why, like I said, I quit smoking because of the track, but I did use the vape to quit smoking, which was pretty effective. And as you've noticed, I still have it, and I do need to give it up. You were asking about bad habits. That would be one of them. In my defense, or to my credit, I only vape if I'm having an adult beverage. So I don't vape throughout the day ever. Like, in fact, the vape never even comes in the house. It sits in the shop, because if I'm gonna have a few seltzers, almost exclusively it's because I'm gonna go out in the shop and wrench on the bikes, or putz around with a project I'm working on, or whatever it is. So I do still vape, so I got the double whammy with the basic white girl seltzers and the douche flute, but I do still hit the vape a little bit when I'm having the seltzers.
Listen, I miss it. I ain't gonna lie. There's just something, I don't know, just satisfying about it, I guess. Especially when I'm drinking too. I'm like, dude, I gotta hit the vape. So yeah, it's yeah, man, it's part of it. So, dude, you know, growing up, I was like, I'm still a Star Wars nerd. Did you ever watch Star Wars or Star Trek?
Yeah,
Was
for
you into
sure.
that?
Yeah. No, for sure. I definitely watched all the Star Wars movies. I wouldn't say I'm a big Star Wars nerd, but I do thoroughly enjoy the franchise, at least what it was up until, Phantom
The
Menace.
bullshit. Yeah.
Yeah.
We won't even talk
Um,
about that. Yeah.
yeah. Interestingly enough, a few years ago, Trish and I actually sat down and watched the original Star Wars series start to finish. We binged that for a while, and it's one of those things like, a lot of the old movies and old sitcoms and stuff like that, from that era all the way up through basically through modern time, like they didn't age well, right? There's so many, and I do this with some frequency where suddenly I'll think about a movie that I saw 20 years ago that I really liked. And so I'll go rent it or buy it or whatever. And you watch it today after you haven't seen it for 15, 20 years, whatever. And it's like, wow, this is trash. I can't believe I liked this movie back in the day, right? The original Star Trek series, if you've never sat down and really watched that start to finish, it's gold, man. It's amazing. Not enough to make me like a Trekkie, but it's good stuff. We thoroughly enjoyed it. Definitely not a Trekkie. We didn't go into any of the further seasons, Deep Space Nine and whatever else they all were. So definitely not a Trekkie, but I would say I'm definitely a sci-fi junkie a little bit. I do like the genre. A lot of stuff along those lines. Like the Star Trek movie was great. But yeah, I definitely like a lot of the sci-fi stuff. X-Files. Huge X-Files fan.
Me too. I was a nerd for X-Files,
Yeah,
for sure. Yeah,
I've watched all of the seasons multiple times over, as well as all the movies.
Yeah, it was good. It was a grabber. It was one of those movies.
Yep.
You either liked it or you didn't. Or TV shows.
Well, and back in the day, I mean, Gillian Anderson. Let's be honest here. Smoke show.
Yeah, I mean, facts, right? Which brings me, who's your celebrity crush now?
Shit, I don't even know. I'm so disengaged with celebrities anymore, and I don't say that to be altruistic or prudish or anything like that. But I'm out of touch with Hollywood. I just don't care.
I don't.
Hell, I haven't been to a theater in years. Trying to think of who a celebrity crush might be.
Growing up, let's say that. Growing up, who's your celebrity crush? Mine was one of mine.
Gillian Anderson, 100%. 100% was Gillian Anderson.
Salma Hayek was one for me, man.
Yeah, I could see that. A little too cliche for me. Everybody thought the same thing. But I mean, you got to think. So when the X-Files was first airing on Fox, I was in my early teens. So I was middle of puberty type of situation, watching every Wednesday evening. When the X-Files would come on, I'm looking at Gillian Anderson, just like, oh man, total babe.
Your mom's like, dinner's ready. I'll be out in 5 minutes, Mom. You're like, again, goddamn, how many times you gotta go to the bathroom? X-Files is on. Are you kidding me right now? Yeah, dude, it's hilarious. Yeah. Oh my god, I love it, dude. So what TV shows are you guys? I just got done watching The Foundation on Apple TV, which was a good sci-fi show. Is there anything you and your wife are currently watching you can recommend to people?
So right now we're watching SWAT, which is pretty corny. We're really watching that. That's more of like a how you do sometimes. You flip something on that you're only half engaged with, and you're kind of scrolling through your phone and stuff like that, and then making dinner or whatever. It's kind of background noise. So that's the show we've been watching, but definitely not engaged. It's super corny. I've never really cared for Shamar Moore. I think he's kind of a trash actor. He's a nice enough dude, but I don't think he's never really been in anything where he's been like a stellar actor. And the whole role is kind of that same level, super corny. We're about to fire back up season 3 of Reacher. I watched the first couple of seasons of that. I thought that was a great show. That's again, kind of has definitely a lot of stereotypical stuff in it, or it plays with a lot of stereotypes. And it's a bit corny, but I thought it's a pretty good show. So we're about to fire up season 3 of that, and I'm real interested to see where that goes.
I love it, man. Go ahead.
Well, I was just trying to think if there's anything else lately that I've watched that nothing really comes to mind other than Reacher.
I'll tell you another good one that I watched. It's also on Apple TV. Was dude, fucking Ted Lasso, bro. You gotta watch Ted Lasso. It's fucking awesome.
I haven't watched it. Is that only on Apple TV?
Yeah, it's only on Apple TV.
I was gonna say because I work in IT, so I understand technology better than many other people, and so I'm one of the people that understands that Apple's trash. So Samsung for life over here, Android. So take your Apple TV
and shove it up your ass. Go on and be honest, Mike. Come on, man.
Take a long walk off a short pier with your Apple TV.
Right, shove it right up your ass. Yeah, man. Listen, I've been with Apple for a long time. I almost switched to Samsung. I think my next phone when I do my upgrade, I think I'm gonna go back to Samsung.
Oh, come on. You don't have to do that for me just because I called you out in front of everybody.
No, I mean, I'm not. You can ask my wife. I had many conversations. She's like, well, fuck it. You do what you want to do. I'm going to stay with Apple. I'm like, you do you, boo-boo, right? I want to think outside the box for a little while.
The thing is, honestly, and being real for a second from an IT perspective, they're both great products. And the UI is so different between the two that it's kind of like what you know, right? Like it's hard to move from one to the other. I end up having to support both, pretty well daily. Apple has a lot going for it. It's, I joke, as we all do. I'm a Cowie guy. I hate the Yamaha, right? But at the end of the day, they're both still great bikes, right? And Apple and Samsung or Apple Android, same thing. Generally, you will find people in IT prefer the Androids, but that's because, especially historically, Android was more open source and more. You could do more with it if you knew what you wanted to do or knew how to do it. Whereas Apple's very closed source, real closed ecosystem. But it's shiny, it's pretty, and it does its job very well. So, I'll always be an Android person, but Apple is a great product.
Yin or the yang, right? It's all the same pretty much. So let me ask you this: if you could invite any three people to a private track day, dead or alive, what three people would you bring?
Wow. I don't know that I could answer that question quite the way most people would. What I would have to lean on would be the people that I have ridden with in the past. So people that are alive, right? That I've had the absolute most fun with. So it's like I have a hard time limiting it to three, but just to call it a couple. Some of the people that I have the most fun on track with, definitely Abe Murphy. He and I have a ball. Jeff Servin, Jay Power. Jay and I always cut up together. We rode, our riding styles were similar for a long time, and we always had a lot of fun. So as an example, if I was able to do a track day and it was just me, Jay, Abe, Jeff, I think it'd be a ball. I think we'd have a blast. But I could also, several other people in, where it's like, maybe it's not so much about the three people that you could pick, because a lot of people are like, well, Marc Marquez, Valentino Rossi, it's like, but why? These are people that I will see them for, all of two corners and they'll be gone. Why would I enjoy that, right? I would rather be on the track with people that I actually can ride with and enjoy that time with. So I think that's probably more the answer to the question. Same thing, like some of the funnest sessions that I had, a couple of years ago would have been turning laps with Robert, Travis, Trevor, where the four of us would go out and just cut up, To me, that's the answer to that question. There's no point in spending a track day with a celebrity that you would never be able to keep up with. Maybe one day I'll be at a level where I could say, well, yeah, I'd love to do a track day with Valentino Rossi because I have even a half a prayer of spending more than one corner behind him.
Right.
But I don't know.
Yeah.
Sorry, I really danced around the answer to that question.
You're good, bro. It's
all about the experience in the moment, right? Like I love like I said, some of the funnest times I've ever had at tracks were when you just gelled with the people you were riding with in the moment because your pace was the same, your vibe was the same, your mood was the same, whatever it was. You've been doing this a while. You know what I'm talking about. Where you come in from a session and you've never been like happier in your life because that session, for whatever reason, everything just clicked and you had so much fun with the people that you were with. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's and that's what it's about, right? You always try to relive those moments too. Go back and be like, dude, I remember that time. It was like that whole day was just fucking perfect, absolute proper mega, as I always say. So it's dude, it is. And when I ask that question, I know it's kind of a broad question. I guess I'm more kind of expect like just to wrap it kind of quick fire. Oh yeah, like Michael Dunlop, my dad, and fucking George Washington, who knows, whatever it
Yeah.
is. It's just
Oh, you meant even people that wouldn't necessarily be motorcycle riders.
Dude, anybody,
I thought we were talking like
anybody in the
exclusively
world.
from the pool of motorcycle riders.
It can be anybody in the world.
You know, another person that I think would be really interesting to spend a little time with on a racetrack, especially because he actually does it, is Keanu Reeves. You know, he's such an enigma of a person. You know, he does all that stuff with Arch Motorcycle anyway. He does track days. You know, he owns a lot of motorcycles. Certainly he'd be top on the list of hypotheticals, pie in the sky type of scenarios where it's like, hell, I'd turn some laps with Keanu Reeves and see what that's all about for sure.
Dude, who the fuck would want to spend the day with Johnny Utah? I mean, let's just be honest. This is one of my favorite movies. Point Break, bitch. Let's go. That's one movie that is still good. It is Point Break. I give it to you. But with saying that, going back watching the older movies, you look at it and you're like, this acting kind of sucks, right? Not saying Keanu sucks, but it's just the whole time management.
Well, the acting, the scripting, the cinematography, it just, we've advanced so far that you kind of forget how rudimentary things were even 10 or 15 years ago, Yeah,
dude, it's awesome. Let me ask you this. Well, we're getting to the end of the podcast, which is part one of many we're actually going to do. What advice would you give your younger self? And I'm going to ask that same question on the flip side of that is, what advice would you give to somebody new coming into the sport?
What advice would I give to my younger self as it pertains to motorcycles or life in general?
Just life in general.
Buy Bitcoin at $1 would probably be a good one.
Facts.
It's an interesting question because, knowing what you know now, there's many things you could potentially tell a younger version of yourself. But I've always kind of struggled with that question. And it's like, I've interviewed people, in my job, but like I hire people. And that's a kind of a common interview question. And I have mixed feelings about the question because it's an interesting, introspective question. But at the same time, I'm also the type of person that says, I don't know that I would tell my younger self anything. Like, sure, there's a lot of things I could tell my younger self that would make me turn out a different one probably, or would spare me from certain aspects of pain or regret or learning experiences or whatever it was. But then the question, if you want to really go down that rabbit hole, like then the question becomes, well, then who would I be today? Would I be the person that I am today, or would I be some wildly different version of myself that I wouldn't even recognize? You know what I mean? And it's like, sometimes who you are is the devil you know, right?
I'm laughing at Chris Myers. Dude, Chris Myers says, advice to younger self, you look gay with a beard.
He's just mad because he can't grow one.
Oh my God. I love it. It is, but it's again, that's kind of a question you kind of reflect on because I struggle with that one too, because it's like, I embrace what I've done, and that's why I am who I am right now.
Right.
And there's all that's just part of journey of life, right?
Yeah.
Would you want to change some of it? I don't really fucking know, because I might not be sitting here right now doing this. You never
exactly.
know.
Yeah. I mean, you are the sum of your life's decisions, right? And good, bad, or indifferent, right? So it's like, yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, I don't know that I would want to change anything, and again, pie in the sky, sure, we all have regrets where it's like, man, had I only known, right? But yeah, I mean, like you're saying, that would fundamentally change who you are as a person today. And the best, we know ourselves the best in the moment, right? Like, so how could I even begin to imagine what I would be as a person if I did go back to 12-year-old me, for example, and say, you don't know this now, but blah blah blah, or whatever it would be. So yeah, I mean, wow, this suddenly became like Deep Thoughts with Chris Simcoe, right?
And we captured it live on the podcast. It's forever on the internet now.
All of a sudden, you're gonna have like a spin-off podcast for like deep diving psychoanalysis or whatever. But
you never know; it could happen, right?
You never know. Brave new world.
Dude, it absolutely is. So we'll say that though. What advice would you give to, like, let's say, the younger generation getting into the sport, or somebody new at the track day?
some of the stuff we've already talked about, obviously, like, go in and listen and learn, like check your ego at the door, all these types of things. But the I would say probably like really good advice for somebody just getting into it is like take a really good look at your financial posture, and that may sound a little odd, but it's like I mean, as well as I do, when people get their first hit of that track pipe, like most people are kind of all in on it, right? Like we all just kind of into the deep end. Here we go.
Take my credit card. Tell me when it's
right,
maxed out.
yeah,
I get another
exactly.
one, no
Well,
problem.
And I think that some people do exactly that, right? Like they burn out fast financially because exactly that. It's like credit card, just charge it all, and we just got to do all the things. To a degree, it depending on who you are and what your objectives are, and how much you're quickly falling into the track scene. Like be very cognizant of your financial situation, and potentially, if necessary, kind of pace yourself. And I've got a couple of friends that I've met as newer riders that probably could kind of attest to that. Because what you don't want to do is blow your whole load in your first season of track riding, and then you can't afford to do it for 3 days. You know what I mean? So it can be tough to be financially disciplined, and track riding is not cheap. You can do it. You can do it responsibly. I hate to use that word because there is absolutely nothing responsible about riding track days or racing or whatever. But you can kind of balance it out. And you and I talked about the other night. That's one of my favorite words is balance, finding the balance in everything. But I have seen a lot of riders who come in and they go, whole hog, and then all of a sudden, year 2, they just can't afford to do anything. Well, I got to sit it out, I got to earn some more money, whatever. It's like, all right, well then, be financially aware, right? Yeah. And like work to your advantage so that you don't burn up in a year, financially. See what 100%. You need to do to make that happen. Probably, you usually don't hear anybody talking finances and track days in the same conversation. So it's probably a weird take, but
I mean, it's true.
Financial nerds. So,
well, I mean, it's. I think a lot of people too. They want the biggest, baddest 250 horsepower motorcycle. Right. I gotta have. Look at me, right? And you really, you're never gonna ride that bike fast to its full potential, right?
Right. Yeah.
Like there are earlier. Cheaper ways of racing and staying into racing, like a 300, buy 300, race it. You'll go through maybe 1 or 2 sets of tires a year, right? It's cheap. Yep. It's fun. You don't need, people think another misconception I hear too. My buddies, I'm going to buy this Öhlins rear shock. I'm like, you think just by bolting on a gold rear shock's going to make you 2 seconds a lap faster? Absolutely not. Why don't you save that money, get some proper coaching, get a 300, and then advance, right? Learn to ride the bike which you have to its full potential before you step up to a cartridge kit. Put thicker fluid, a bigger air gap.
100%. And that we go back to like checking your ego and being humble and stuff like that. Like some of the most humbling things you'll see is when the truly fast guys come into a track day and they're on a small bike or some bone stock bike or shag tires or whatever it is. Where your equipment is nicer than theirs in some capacity, and they are so much faster than you that they're in, they are those, the aliens, the super. I'll never forget one of the earlier track days that I did where Gabriel da Silva was there, and I forget all the details, but this was at NCM's my home track, so a lot of my time is spent there. But Gabriel da Silva was there, and he was on. My recollection was that he was on like a bone stock R6, basically had nothing done to it, and we're all there on the big leader bikes and everything, I group, low A, whatever it was, doing our thing. And he's out there like 2 seconds off the track record on a bone stock R6. It's like, how? Chris Parrish, if he's still watching, watch him, bust out an SV650 that's older than some of the people on the track, right. and running sub 2s on it. It's like, and that is one of the things as a coach I tell people all the time. It's like, you do not need the latest, greatest motorcycle to be fast. More importantly, almost, you do not need the latest, greatest motorcycle to come out here and have a hell of a good time, and people do that. You get caught into that kind of that trap of, well, like you just said, like, well, if I just got a rear shock, I'd be faster. If I just got cartridges in the front, I'd be faster. If I just went to slicks, I'd be faster. And it's like, nah, man, I've watched Mark Young run like whatever it was, 54s at NCM on TD tires. Like, you do not need the latest, greatest, top of the line stuff, you know. So if you're bowling on a budget, then do that and extend your ability to do motorcycle things on racetracks for you know, uh, as, as a marathon, not a sprint. You know what I mean? Because
Facts.
we want to see people here for the long haul. You know, I don't want to see you come do 2 track days and see you again.
That's true. You know, it's yeah, man. And the most important thing, you said it. We're here to have fucking fun, people.
Yeah,
That's
all the
it.
fun. All the fun. Yep.
110%. It's freaking awesome. But listen, last question, and we'll wrap it up. Dude, if you could travel back in time to any era in history, what era would you travel back to?
Probably like the early. This is going to sound funny, but probably to like the early days of the Industrial Revolution. I love technology. I mean, I work in IT, right? So it's 2 degrees to be expected,
Yeah.
but it's like I love like growth in technology and learning new things and stuff like that. And if you really kind of look at how the Industrial Revolution in the United States played out over that period of time, the growth in technology, invention in you know, chemistry and biology and everything else that went to the Industrial Revolution, like the growth was unprecedented in the history of humanity, right? Every single day we were learning new things, inventing new things, and that growth is just staggering. And much of that is still the pillars of the technology that we know today. You know, you look at somebody like Nikola Tesla. You know, we don't know a fraction of what he was actually up to. You know, it's just insane. You know, and just his whole battle with George Westinghouse and, you know, alternating current, direct current, electricity, how we were doing that, you know, all of this stuff starting in much earlier, obviously, but starting with the beginnings of the Industrial Revolution. I would have loved to have been alive in that time, because I feel like there's a pretty good chance I would have been in the middle of that, you know. Maybe, hopefully.
You never know, right? Yeah, absolutely. You never know. Well, listen, dude, Mike, this has been fucking an amazing time. It's an absolute honor to have sat down with you today to do this.
Nah, man, you know, we're talking the honor is mine. I love what you do with these podcasts. They're such a great way to learn a little bit about people who do all the things that we do at whatever capacity we're doing them. So, no, thank you. I appreciate it, man.
Man, listen, the honor is all mine. I'm actually going to let you give all your shout outs and end the podcast. First, I want to give all my shout outs real quick. Listen, thank you so much for everybody that watches and likes this podcast. You guys and girls are absolutely amazing. I would not be here without you coming on the show. People like Mike right here and all my other friends. Sammy Panero is getting ready to come on. My buddy Birch, you know, from K-Tech. If it wasn't for you guys, I wouldn't be able to do this in girls. So thank you guys to everybody. If you have not had a chance yet, go to all my stuff and hit that ding, ding, ding. You guys know the deal, right? I sound like a broken record. But listen, big shout out to Next Level Financial. All these people I'm getting ready to give a shout out to are my personal friends in the industries. And you're not going to go wrong by ordering or buying anything from any of these people, right? Just find what suits you the best, right? And it gives you that warm, cozy, fuzzy kind of feeling where I might want to do something tonight. I don't know. But yeah, so big shout out to Next Level Financial, bisontrack.com for all your custom gear, right? Chef Eats, big shout out to Chef Eats. You guys can go, which is the most amazing food on the planet. You guys can use a discount code, pin the gas for a discount code, pin the gas, right? You know what it's for. I just said it. Discount code for pin the gas. Anyway, big shout out to TST Industries in Florida. My man, the Clothing Kings. You guys can go to clothingkings.co.uk and get all your pin to gas merch over there in the UK. Superbike Supply, my man Eric, SFL Mini GP, RD Racing, my man Jake March, Vetu Track, Flying Eyes Optics, 64-degree racings and undersuits, right? And Venom undersuits. Again, you're not going to go wrong ordering from any of those, and Bison too, of course, with their undersuits. Another advice: don't go to Mike can contest this. Don't show up to a track day or race weekend event or an endurance race with one undersuit. Just don't do it. Matter of fact,
Yeah,
bring more undersuits
punk-
than you do
Punk will
underwear.
follow you.
Bro, for like weeks, you'll get in your car and they'll be like, what the hell is that smell? Be like, don't do it. So, yeah, big shout out, dude. Ghetto Customs for all your custom body work, best in the business, right? Carnes Performance in Pennsylvania, KYT Helmets America, K-Tech Suspension, my man Birch, Kendall, and Dakari. Best people, some of the best people in the paddock. RTR, Ready to Race in North Carolina. Coleman Power Sports here in Virginia. McLeo Escapes Track and Tour. If you ever wanted to ride a MotoGP circuit, look no further than McLeo Track and Tours. Road Racing World. Listen, I need everybody to go to roadracingworld.com. Donate to the air fence. It's imperative that we have those air fences on our tracks. If we don't have them, it's just like corner marshal workers. We're not fucking having fun, right? So whether you donate $1, $5, $50, or whatever you have, please do it, and we will thank you. And if you're one of the lucky ones, and you show up to Moto America, and the legend Chris Ulrich, he's always there with M4. But if he has a donation thing set up, I forget what the minimum donation is. I think it's $350 or $400. I need to text him and find out. You get a 2-up ride with the legend. Yes, a 2-up ride on the back of a GSX 1000. He will show you the proper way of entry, exit, how much throttle you can get on, and they'll have you on the back too as well, right? So imagine what you could do by yourself.
My understanding is he doesn't hold back on those 2-ups either. Like this is not a Sunday cruise.
No. He wants to make sure you brought at least 2 pairs of underwear when you get off on that back
right,
for sure, right? So so big shout out to him. Big shout out to STG, Brian Van and Max Van. By the way, congratulations, Max, on M4 ride this year on the 600.
Yeah, big news out of the Van family again. Good for him.
Absolutely. Dripping Wet for all your graphics, R&B for your graphics, and of course my man Gus Rodeo at GRG for graphics too. So any of those people, you're not going to go wrong. They're all absolute legends of the sport. All my friends out there in the UK, Mike Spike Edwards, which is a legend, 6-time BSB champion. He has a coaching. You can go to v121pro.com and sign up and learn from the best. Big shout out to BTR, Build, Train, Race, Royal Enfield, one of the best programs we have in Moto America, and I love what they're doing. Big shout out to Racer411 at tippingracing.com. Hyper Naked Suits again. You're not going to go wrong with any of these gear. California Superbike School out there in the UK, Moto Mutt International. Big shout out to King Performance, my buddy Cole King, SEMRC. I hope I got that right. Turn 12. And big shout out to my buddy Obsession Engineering out there in the UK. And last but not least, big shout out to BTI Photos. So absolutely. Yeah. So Mike, tell everybody where they can find you on social media. Oh, big shout out to TDJ YouTube, by the way. I had to add that in there.
For all the degenerates out there.
For all of us degenerates out there.
Bringing smiles some days, tears the other days, or on the best days, a little of both.
That's what I love.
Yeah, for sure, man. Big shout out to BTI Photo. Obviously, I'm obviously biased. That's my wife, but she does great work. Anybody who knows Trish will know. We always joke that the world doesn't deserve Trish. She's far too nice to be married to me, for starters, and she's far too nice for most of us anyway. But big shout out to BTI Photo, and like you said, Hyper Naked Brand. Callum and I have been tight for a long time. He does great stuff with Hyper Naked Brand. So big shout out to them, and of course, obviously, Chris and Becky running Fastline Track Days. Again, biased, but they're in my opinion, one of the best run orgs out there right now. We do a lot of hard work to make really good events that are as fun as they can possibly be, while also having a huge mind of safety and a wonderful group of people that coach for them and make sure that that you're every minute that you're on that track, you're learning, you're growing, you're enjoying, and you're becoming a better rider.
Oh, 100%. I would love to actually sit down with Becky and them at Fastline Track Days and get them on the podcast and have a conversation.
You should. It'd be a good one for sure.
Yeah. So if Becky, you guys man, hit me up. I'll post my phone number right now. I'm on all social. You guys know how to find me, man. I mean, I'm not hard to find. Trust me at all. Yeah, man. It's in Mark Jung. So Becky says Mark Jung actually gives 2-up rides too at Fastline Track Days, which is fucking fantastic because he's an absolute legend too. I've never been, okay, I ain't gonna lie, I've been not on the track, but I got on the back of buddy's bike one time, and we hit like 150 on the street, and I got off of that thing, and I was like, I will never fucking do that shit again, dude. That was
Yeah,
just I don't see how
I'm
women
not
do
real
it,
good
bro.
at being a
Right?
passenger. Yeah.
No, I gotta be in control. If I'm not in control, I kind of like freak out. You know, like, oh my god, what's going on?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, unless you're like a 12-pack deep and you're on the back of a Zuma in the barber in the barber paddock, you know, or whatever. Not that that's ever happened, because I mean, you know, I would never. But if you did happen to find yourself riding nuts to butt on the back of a Zuma 12-pack deep at barber, maybe, you know.
Hey, what happens at barbers stays at barber, right?
Running from security, maybe running from security over the sidewalks and stuff, or whatever might actually happen in that hypothetical, very not real scenario that definitely never happened.
I love it, right? Yeah, it's just a dream I had one time. Look, Trevor, what is up, Trevor? He says Mike can be my passenger princess any day.
Yeah.
What about me, dude? I'm butthurt right now. No, I'm just joking. That's awesome. I freaking love it. Well, listen, man, this has been a lot of fun, dude. I appreciate you coming on. It's an absolute honor. This will be out tomorrow everywhere you guys listen to your podcast. So again, thank you guys so much for tuning in on this Proper Mega Two Wheel Tuesday. And yeah, we will sit down. I'm actually going to go spend the weekend with Mike. We need to plan it out, and we'll do some live podcasts there and some White Claws, and fuck, who knows what's going to happen during that.
Just the general shenaniganry, you know.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, it's going to be a good one. Trust me. Maybe we'll get Trevor Watson down there. Of course, Daniel Shoemaker will be there. We'll have to get Parrish up there. Yeah, there's a lot of legends that live.
We've done a few of those parties here at the shop, right? I encourage everybody to bring their pit bikes, their Zumas, their e-bikes, whatever you got. Like, you know, we did one that I literally called like my pit bike extravaganza. It was just bonfire, karaoke, beers in the shop, and drunk pit bike riding. You know,
living life, having fun. That's what it's about, right? So yeah,
let's do it. We'll do one with Chris Simcoe.
I appreciate it. The honor would be all mine. But ladies and gentlemen, we appreciate you coming on. It was an absolute honor today to sit down with the legend himself, Mike. What was your middle name again?
Don't worry about that.
Oh, you guys knew who it is. I did that on purpose. You like how I did that, right? Mike Matt, ladies and gentlemen, let's fucking go. All right. Dude, I love it. Is there anything you want to say before I end this?
Nah, man, that's it.
Right. We'll see you guys soon.
Thanks,
Stay
Chris.
with me for 1 second. No, thank you, brother, man.
Calling all two-wheel enthusiasts, get ready to rev up your earbuds with Pin the Gas Podcast, the ultimate motorcycle racing podcast, hosted by Chris Simcoe, one of our very own excellent leaders here in Roanoke, Virginia. With expert analysis, behind-the-scenes stories, and exclusive writer interviews, Pin the Gas Podcast delivers the adrenaline rush of the racetrack straight to your ears. Whether you're a diehard fan or a curious newcomer, you'll gain insights that will transform how you watch and understand motorcycle racing. On your favorite podcast app, join Simcoe as he takes you on a high-speed journey through the world of motorcycle racing. Pin the Gas Podcast.